Good evening, race fans, and welcome to Podium eSports coverage of the 9th round of Season 2 of Monday Night Racing, as Big Green Egg presents the CooksandCars Porsche Challenge from Canadian Tire Motorsport Park in Bowmanville, Ontario. James Pike, the voice of Podium eSports, alongside Taylor Burris as we march towards the end of the regular season in Season 2 of Monday Night Racing. We go road racing with the Porsche 911 GT3 Cup car for the first time in Season 2. And Taylor Burris, this is a combo that we at Podium eSports are very familiar with. We've seen the GT3 Cup car tackle this very Canadian Tire Motorsport Park in PCA sim racing competition that you can find here on Podium eSports. So we sort of know what to expect. And I think for those who haven't had the chance to see these cars compete here in Ontario, you're going to see a lot of tight, close quarters racing. Yes, this is a road course, but it almost races like a short track of road courses, sort of like a Lime Rock or some of the other smaller short tracks in the surface.
It certainly is. It is a bull ring. And of course, instead of with the GT3 Cup car that we saw in the PCA last time were here, these are going to be the GTE. So a lot more power, a lot more gumption. So these cars are going to have a little bit of aerodynamic advantage. So these cars are going to be all over the track. And of course, some of the big names that have come out here today are going to be showing what they have here at the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park.
Biggest name to join the ranks of Monday Night Racing this evening, none other than former IndyCar and Indianapolis 500 champion Will Powers. We take a look at where we are. Not terribly moved from the greater Toronto area. You sneak out of the city a little bit and work your way towards the countryside, and you find this fantastic facility in Bowmanville, which has hosted all sorts of competition, both from the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship and the NASCAR Gander Outdoors Truck Series. Both of those series, probably the two largest in recent years to come visit this facility, though it hosts a tremendous amount of both international and domestic motorsports. So lots on tap here and lots to be excited for as we get set for action in this CooksandCars Porsche Challenge. Before we begin tonight's broadcast, two national anthems this evening, both from the United States of America and Canada. Time to take a look at our starting grid for tonight's Cooks and Cars Porsche Challenge presented by Big Green Egg, which sees the newcomer Will Power set a 1:12.465 to take top spot on the grid over James Davison, winner last week at Auto Club. Gabe Wood and Stephen Wilson will start in the second row. Starting in fifth will be Will Rogers. Nick Sanchez and Preston Pardis begin tonight from 6th and 7th. DJ Cummings, Ryan Vargas, and Nick DeGroots complete your top 10.
As we go through the rest of the field, top 20, 11th is going to be Garrett Smithley, followed by Joshua Slate in the 12th position. Kobe Moore will be starting in 13th, followed by NASCAR Cup Series spotter TJ Majors in 14th. Max Cannon will be starting in the 15th position, and Anthony Alfredo starting in 16th, looking for his first career win of the season with the Monday Night Racing. He's been finishing on the second spot of the podium pretty much 3 times so far this season. But next up in 17th will be IndyCar ace Connor Daly, followed by NHRA champion Ron Capps in the 18th position. Gary Sexton will be starting in 19th, rounding out your top 20, Matthew Stallneck.
Stephen Ellis of the Hockey News on home turf. He'll start 21st in his home race. Ford Martin rolls off from 22nd. 23rd on the grid this evening is Garrett Miller, and Kyle Busch, 2-time NASCAR Cup Series champion, begins tonight from 24th. 25th will be the 99 of Mark Rabillas. Robbie Lyons starts in 26th from Grip Motorsports Marketing. Stephen Font begins tonight's race from the 27th spot on the grid. 28th on the grid is Paul Sutton. 29th and 30th, Michael Massey and Drew Welker.
31st position will go to Seth Eggert, followed by Brett Baldeck in 32nd. Greg Stump will be starting in the 33rd position, followed by Brandon Brown, 34th. Roger Diebold will round out your 35-car field here tonight.
So we take a look now at the track facts for this Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. A 2.459-mile, 3.957 kilometer circuit that opened in 1961. 10 turns here, and we will go for 50 minutes. A timed race, a rarity. No fixed distance tonight, so farthest driver along the road in 50 minutes will be your winner this evening. Currently in sim, it is the default day for iRacing, May 15th, 2021, just after 4 o'clock afternoon local time. Cloudy weather here this afternoon in sim, evening in real life, 65 degrees Fahrenheit. Air temperature 72 degrees Fahrenheit. Track temperature, winds headed to the north at 2 miles an hour, and humidity of 56%. Maybe not a surprise that we've got 3 drivers with NTT IndyCar Series experience in the top 5 in qualifying. And Will Rogers also up there as well. He's had a big few weeks, Taylor, with the announcement that Space Station Gaming will be joining the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series off the back of the partnership they built up with Will in the last year. Should this be a ringer's race, or are there any names outside of the usual that you think might be able to surprise us?
Well, if you think about it, NASCAR Cup Truck Series do come here every single year when it comes to racing here at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. Anthony Alfredo should be used to driving in a truck. He could be one. Preston Pardis, an SCCA champion. He should also have a little bit of experience trying to run up here at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park in, of course, road course racing experience. And, of course, Ron Capps, the man who drives just about everything when it comes to all things iRacing. Keep an eye on him to see if he can have a good finish here tonight. So got to throw in a couple other factors here tonight as well. A couple of drivers were having some difficulties throughout the races. One area we're going to be watching is up at Moss Corner, the hairpin. Drivers been having a difficult time on corner entry where they just overshoot the corner. So we'll be keeping an eye on that section of the course when we go get free flag racing.
That'll be 5A, 5B, and 5C that Taylor's referring to. The far end of the circuit with the tight hairpin. You remember a few years ago we had some contact. I believe it might have been Austin Cindric and Kaz Gralla, I think, that got into it over there. But certainly a place to see some contact as we get ready for the green flag, and are happy to have you with us here on Podium eSports as we get set for the Cooks and Cars Porsche Challenge presented by Big Green Egg at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. We are underway, and Will Power and James Davison take off in their 911s and leave everybody behind immediately off of turn 1. Power to first, Davison to second, Stephen Wilson to third, Gabe Wood fourth, and Will Rogers fighting Nick Sanchez for the final spot in the top 5 as they roll through Clayton Corner for the first time.
Heading up through Quebec, which is turn number 3, Will Rogers will get ahead of Nick Sanchez as they now make the run up towards the top of the hill before they dive down heading into Moss. Right now, still a tight battle for the top 3, which are, of course, the IndyCar aces. As they head up into Moss, Davidson takes a peek to the inside, thinks better of it as they come out of Moss, heading down the Andretti Straight.
Big run there for Power to get out of Moss Corner for the first time and make a run down the Andretti Straight as well. Rogers, of course, will go back to the 65 car in just a little bit, but he won the last time we were on a road course 2 weeks ago when we took the Pro 2 trucks that normally go dirt racing at Watkins Glen. He was there as Davison looks to the outside as they came up to the final set of corners here, the S's and White's Corner, then conclude a lap at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. But he's got some speed and in a pretty good battle too. But it is Will Power that will lead James Davison to the line and lead this first lap of the CooksandCars Porsche Challenge presented by Big Green Egg.
A lot of aerodynamics is going to be the key factor of these cars. Compared to a little bit of their cousins, the Porsche 911 GT3 Cup cars, it's a lot more of aerodynamic grip that these cars are going to be looking for. So it's going to be a little bit of both the driver's input, but also making sure that they have the right amount of downforce to get through these corners, which a lot of these drivers, such as Will Power, James Davison, Stephen Wilson, will absolutely know how to handle properly. Some of our other drivers may struggle with that late in the going, but of course when the fuel starts to burn off and the tires start to get a little bit worn, that will be a big factor for them.
A very, very big factor indeed. Tire conservation is pretty key, and this race is about as long as what you'd find in an official race in the INSHA iRacing Sports Car Championship. All the official races, as you look off the rear wing of Will Power and now at the front windshield of Preston Barters, who currently holds the 8th position. But you're going to have the ability to just make a fuel stop. I think for the drivers that are going to finish well, a lot of them are going to manage their tires throughout this race, avoid taking tires on pit road, and just come in for a splash of fuel anywhere from midway to 2/3 of the way through this race. It really should be a one-stop affair, and I have a feeling that if you take tires, you might be able to run up through the field, but the tire wear isn't significant enough if you're running under normal pace on green flag conditions that you should need to get tires. You double stick them, that's probably the best way I think to go, at least to try and climb up with the right strategy through the field.
Yes, but there's also a factor. Around the 30-minute mark, there should be also a competition caution for the drivers as well. Race control determined that before the start of the race. So we'll have to keep that in mind and seeing if we'll see probably 4 tires and fuel for the entire field, or will they decide to do the same thing as a big trouble for Stephen Wilson. He goes off wide through Moss Corner. He's going to lose a ton of positions. It looks like no damage is going to be on that 911 Porsche, but he's going to drop all the way outside the top 10 and possibly outside the top 15.
It was bigger damage than he initially saw. He caught the wall. You'll see the replay here as he came out of Quebec Corner towards Moss Corner and just locked at the brakes on the entry into turn 5. It was very strange, very weird. Almost felt like he might have caught a bump that he didn't necessarily expect to run over. And when he comes up the hill, you see him just slide off track and ding right against the wall there on the outside of the corner with a significant amount of damage to the left front of his machine, and he will likely need to and will indeed come down pit road to get his number 25 Pink Pig fixed up. But that's a lot of damage on the right front, or left front rather, and that probably is Stephen Wilson's chances to win tonight gone.
Pretty much so. Of course, they do have that competition caution later on, so that could be a factor to him if he uses that fast repair and keeps that car on the lead lap. We'll have to wait and see. But right now, it is pretty much Will and James Davison. The Aussies are currently leading the way here at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. Gabriel Wood is currently holding on by 2.8 seconds back.
The Australians lead a virtual race in Canada with commentators from America. We have an international flair in Monday Night Racing, clearly. As we look on board with Will Rogers, he is still trying to chase down Nick Sanchez, who ended up sideways over in Moss Corner and lost a tremendous amount of time. So Rogers now up to P4 as Sanchez slides all the way back to 12 from that 4th position.
Yeah, tough break for Nick Sanchez, who was running inside the top 5. He's going to be under heavy pressure now from Cody Moore in the number 15 Porsche as they now enter up through the S's heading into White's Corner. Of course, White's Corner, another infamous corner when it comes to racing here, whether it be sports cars or NASCARs. Who can forget such the ones as Cole Custer and Austin Dillon here battling it out, as well as several other competitors as well competing here at Canadian Tire's Motorsports Park.
I think one of the interesting things, and we're starting to see it a little bit with these drivers, but with this racetrack in particular, there are a lot of sweeping corners. There aren't necessarily too many tight hairpins outside of the Moss Corner complex as you see Sanchez go off the road in turn 5. But outside of that portion of the racetrack, it's a lot of long flowing corners, but a lot of undulation, not necessarily immediate elevation changes, but sort of rolling. And I feel like you end up in the same position as you do when you're on a roller coaster cresting a hill, where there are certain points of the racetrack where you'll lose all of that G-force and the rear end will lighten up a bit and it loosens up the car for a split second in some of these corners. And if you don't know how to control the car in those points, that can throw you sideways very, very easily. You just have to make sure you hold your own in those sort of zero inertia moments to make sure that you don't lose it and spin off the racetrack. There is runoff room here, but you are going to lose time if you end up sideways in that way, no question.
Certainly, especially as we see Will Rogers, our race leader, going up through Clayton and up to Quebec. Those are the two corners where you feel that zero gravity type feel when you're coming up over the hill and cresting and then down that hill before you go up again a little bit through Quebec corner. So it's very interesting to see how the cars are able to manage and hold on with the grip to be able to continue through those corners flowing to set up for the next set of corners such as Moss.
Moss is almost an entity unto itself as you start to see the great battles there. We're on board still with Nick Sanchez. He's riding just behind Josh Slayton, behind the wall media car. And as we look on board with Mick DeGroot out the rear of his car, you can see that black and neon, call it green, teal, robin's egg blue somewhere in the middle, and the I'll call it magenta. We're particular about colors here, but in either case, the TikTok colors for Ryan Vargas that he has carried over from his Camaro at JD Motorsports to this 911 Porsche RSR.
Yeah, it's a great job for Ryan Vargas right now, running inside the top 10 as he's trying to see if he can catch up to Nick DeGroot as he's on the board as he goes through the S's heading up to White's corner. He has Anthony Alfredo right behind him as well. He's going to take a peek to the inside as they come out of White's. They're going to be side by side almost before they get to turn 1. That's a trouble for one driver. That's Preston Pardis.
Pardis in trouble, so he'll drop off and fall through the ranks. Immediately had to take the tow onto pit road, so that's about, call it maybe a minute or two right there. 90 will be out of contention as Vargas just about clipped Alfredo coming through turn 2. But let's take a look at what happened to Preston Pardis. This was coming out of White's corner, the final corner, and he just caught the grass and tried to get back on the gas and ended up spinning himself into the inside retaining wall right next to pit road. Hard hit there for the driver in the Porsche, or rather the Brumos Porsche livery this evening. We know how well they've done, especially around this time of year. You take them down to Daytona and it's class wins, it's overall wins, it's plenty of history with the red and the white and the blue. As you see, Will Power and James Davison, the Aussies are maybe separated by a car length or two at best, but still in control of this and two good effects. Gabe Wood is third on the board and is about 3 seconds back of Davison, so those two are in a battle of their own. And then it's Wood, and then Rogers has about 2 seconds back to the 50 car. And then Rogers has about, maybe 6-7 tenths to give to back up for DJ Cummings, who currently holds that last spot in the top 5. So, bit of separation here. And then you get a little bit further back. We'll go back to Sanchez with Vargas ahead and Alfredo just ahead of Vargas's machine. And you may have noticed that when we were on board with Vargas a little while ago, you might have seen the 38 on the side of Anthony Alfredo's machine. Appropriate number change for Alfredo, given that he just announced that he will be racing full-time for Front Row Motorsports in the NASCAR Cup Series in 2021 with Speedy Catch on board his Ford Mustang for the Daytona 500 in a few weeks. So big few weeks for Anthony Alfredo, and pretty involved here at Podium between this and the eSports Racing League.
Yeah, a great job for him. And, of course, we can't thank Anthony enough for allowing us to call that series, but also for him, of course, to come out here and have fun where we can have a good time with him. He's still looking for that first win here for Monday Night Racing, James. You know, last week over at Auto Club with the Indy cars, he was on the podium finish once again, but just was so close to taking home his first career Monday Night Racing victory, but is not able to. So I'm pretty sure he's trying to see if there's any way before the season comes to a close to just get one of these famous Monday Night Racing victories.
Riding on board with Zach Eggert now in the 45. He's a little bit further back. This is 23rd that you're riding on board with. Drew Welker is the man just ahead in the Gulf colors, that orange and that blue that took Ford to victory in Le Mans in 1966, the famous win for them overall. And a little bit of work for Eggert and Welker to do as they carry on through this race. About 14 minutes gone of our 50. Still about 40 minutes to go in this CooksandCars Porsche Challenge.
One thing I've noticed, and I'm quite surprised right now, the drivers who I thought might be working his way up to the field, Kyle Busch, in the number 51. He's currently sitting 29th, the last car on the lead lap. He's about 4 seconds off the pace behind Connor Daly, who's just up the road from him. He had a little bit of an incident. Both of them have decided to come down pit road, so I wonder if they got involved in some incidents early on in the going. So we'll have to keep track and see if they're going to have anything to at least possibly break inside the top 20. Kyle Busch, of course, locked into the playoffs with his win at Talladega, but after that win at Talladega, he really has not been in contention for any of the race wins so far this season.
He was nearly there as we take a look at Nick Sanchez in trouble again. This is near White's corner, and more trouble coming down the Andretti straightaway, tailing looks like Ron Capps in his 96 car as they came down. It's a deceptive corner. Kind of reminds me of the opening of the Porsche curves at Le Mans, where you can brake and you think you can brake a little bit deeper than you can, and then you miss it. In that case, he was trying to work his way around traffic, but still, it sort of baits you into braking deeper into the corner than you need to be successful, and instead of making the pass, he ends up bouncing over the curve, tearing up the suspension of the car, and likely will be down pit road in short order for repairs.
Yeah, he's already down pit road right now, trying to see if he can repair the damage. Of course, he might use that fast repairs to help get him back on the track a little bit quicker as they continue on their way here. 10 laps have been completed so far for Will Rogers as he comes across the line. Him, along with the rest of the top five, still the only drivers running in the 1:12. Everyone else is running a 1:13 or worse as DJ Cummings comes across the line running the first 1:13. So 4 drivers: Will Power, James Davison, Gabriel Wood, and Will Rogers, currently the fastest cars out on the racetrack right now.
It's them, DJ Cummings and Nick DeGroot and Anthony Alfredo running the 113s, and then just about everybody else running anywhere from the 114s to the mid-115s, we'll call it. So it's that front 3, then the next 3 or 4, and then everybody else, I think, so far as lap times are concerned. I also want to go back as we go on board with Vargas once again. Another point about Alfredo that I neglected to make earlier, but one that goes off the back of the point that you made about how Alfredo hasn't had a win in this season yet, but has been incredibly consistent. It's been top 2s, top 3s, podium finishes across the board, and Anthony did not compete in the first race of the season at Talladega in the Cup cars back in November. So even with one race down, he still has more points than anyone else without a victory in this season so far, save for Matt Stallings. Those two are separated by 5 points, but they've got more points than anybody else outside of wins, and they are, I would say, pretty set to go for a playoff run once those kick off in a few weeks.
It certainly is, and of course the playoffs are just going to be even more so interesting. Of course, the GTE cars will be used in effect later on towards the end of the playoffs when we go to Montreal, and of course, not just the Porsche, of course, it'll be multiple GTE cars on the track. Of course, these drivers could use this Porsche to advantage to determine which of the GTRs they would prefer to use when that time comes. So good little testing run for them before they get to the playoffs later on this season.
You'll have options when you get to Montreal, but this is a good way to warm you up as we look on board with Kyle Busch, see who or what he can try and fight as Busch running just a little bit further back of Matt Stallknecht, we just mentioned a little while ago, trying to work their way up through the field. Busch a lap down while Stallknecht on a lead lap running in 19th at the moment.
Looking through the field right now to find some great battles. Still, we have that battle for the race lead we're keeping an eye on between Will Powers, James Davison right now. They just come out of turn number 1, heading up through Clayton and Quebec section of the course, turns 2 and 3, and both of them have not given up an inch just yet. They're coming up on some more lap traffic, which is going to make it a little bit interesting right now as they come up through Clayton now, heading up through the hill before they go underneath the bridge, heading over to Moss. Lap traffic is just easily getting out of the way, giving them plenty of room to continue racing on as they make the run down the hill before going up into Moss. Still going to be a tight battle as Davison tries to take a peek coming out of Moss, but can't quite get the run he needs have to utilize some of the slipstream down the Andretti straight to see if he can get to the inside or outside of Will Power before they head through the S's.
Seth Eggert with the respect for the battle of the lead there, getting out of the way to leave the stage open for Power and Davison to duke it out as they begin to work lap traffic. And that definitely is going to change the dynamic of this battle between the top two. It always does. But here in particular, it seems like, especially throughout the PCA sim racing events that we've done here, there's always one race where you see lap traffic play into this in a way that you wouldn't necessarily think you would. And how about Kyle Busch potentially being the roadblock of all the people that you thought that might make things interesting? 51 was not the one that I had in that category going into the evening, but all of a sudden, James Davison has gained that car length that he was down to Will Power by, and it is nose to tail as they work their way through Clayton and Quebec corners.
Here they come out of Clayton now, heading up underneath the bridge, the Continental Bridge, before they head down to Moss. You know, we talk about in sports car racing, these cars, lap cars, can be used as a pick to set up a passing opportunity in order to get around your competition. You set it up right, you can pass someone to the inside or outside while heading into a corner. So that's why a lot of these lead lap cars like to try and pass the lap down cars on the straightaways here. That makes it a little bit easier for them. Passing into a corner, it is giving you susceptible to possibly going past, as here comes Davison to the outside as they go into the S's. Who will be the braver of the two on the Power as they power it down? Davison holds strong, but Power, contact is going to be made. Davison's going to save the car. More contact going to happen. There goes Will Power around.
Will Power gets spun as James Davison and Power bounced off of each other, battling through the S's, and Power comes out the worst of the two, now with heavy damage on the front end of his machine in addition to all that damage on the rear wing. And I couldn't tell, I heard race control chime in just a little bit as soon as that contact was made. We'll see if there's any ruling and whether or not Davison gets a penalty for his role in that melee. But Power is the one with the damage coming down pit road to try and get his car fixed up.
Well, if Davison has to come down pit road to serve a penalty, the driver who will be sitting in the catbird seat, number 50 of Gabriel Wood. He's been running quite consistently. He's working his way through lap traffic right now as he's going through about a gaggle of cars before he gets up into the Moss corner. And he could possibly take over the race lead before this is said and done. And he has about almost a 2.5, 3 second advantage over Will Rogers sitting in third.
Will Rogers hanging in P3, and I think very calmly, coolly, and collectedly just hanging out and knocking off laps. Gabe Wood, not necessarily someone that you would expect to be a road ringer given his background, his work with so many different teams in the ARCA Menards series. He comes from an oval background, but a sim racer and a driver in iRacing, he's been for a very long time across multiple disciplines, especially on the asphalt. And so in that sense, not a shock at all to see the number 50 in P2 at this time.
No, not at all. He's doing a great job right now, holding strong as he's kind of held up a little bit by some lap cars in front of them as they go down through Clayton, heading up to Quebec right now. And as he's trying to just take his time, stay on the asphalt, stay off the grass and the curbing as they come up through Quebec. He's having a great run so far right now. As we look a little further back, another driver having a good run is DJ Cummings, and sitting in fourth in that number 10. He's about a second off the pace right now from Will Rogers. So if he's able to get inside the top three, that would be a good run for him.
Would be a really, really good run for a man who was there in the title fight, one of the championship four from a season ago, as it is still Davison out there, and we'll see if he comes down pit road. Trouble for Garrett Miller in the 36. He's gone sideways. The racetrack, that looks like that might be potentially Quebec corner. We'll see what happened to Miller as he came off of the main straight down through 1 and 2, and likely probably just clip the grass here to some effect as Davison does come down pit road. So penalty from race control there, and yeah, just got way off on the grass, and it's so slippery out there. You lose touch with the pavement. It's really easy, especially in that part of the racetrack, to lose control of the race car. And Gabe Wood now is your race leader as Davison comes down to serve his penalty for the contact with Will Power.
And Will Power right now sits in the 10th position right now. He's trying to make some ground up on Ryan Vargas. He's about 12 seconds back from Vargas, who sits in the 9th position. But with that penalty, Gabe Wood now has about a 1.9 second advantage over Will Rogers as they continue on their way. Gabe Wood, Will Rogers both in heavy lap traffic as they come approach Moss.
So Rogers there, call it maybe about a second and a half. He has consistently been clipping off some speed from Gabe Wood and clipping down the gap between those two as the laps have progressed. But the lap traffic will be the biggest thing that helps him, although Wood, I think, got lucky there to catch as many lap cars in Moss Corner as he did. If there's a spot where you want to get them, that, more than anywhere else on this track, is the place.
It certainly is, and it's a great opportunity for Gabriel Wood to be able to pull a little bit of a gap now ahead of Will Rogers, as it's now back to 2.5 seconds as they continue on the way out of White's Corner. As they come across the line, they will have completed 17 laps right now, as we are just under 30 minutes to go.
And not terribly far removed from the competition car set at halfway either, as Wood and Rogers continue to pace this group, then Cummings, then DeGroot, and Anthony Alfredo doing what he seems to do best week in, week out, pumping out another consistent, solid run. It's P5 for the 38 as it stands just behind Nick DeGroot in the 89. You see the traditional yellow of the factory back group. He and his teammates, the Groots, used to running the yellow and the black. Also colors of the Groot's employer, Motorsport.com, for whom the Groot is an editor. And, oh, by the way, the defending champion of Monday Night Racing.
Well, this is the run he needs in order to continue this championship run for him to try and defend it, sitting in that 4th position. Had a little bit of pressure from Anthony Alfredo, who sits in 5th, about 0.4 seconds off the pace from him right now as they go down the Andretti straightaway, as those two will do battle as they head down towards the S's.
DeGroot is one of 5 drivers who are locked into the playoffs Monday Night Racing Season 2 on wins. He's joined by Preston Pardis, Kyle Busch, Will Rogers, and Nick Sanchez. James Davison won last week, but has not fulfilled the requirement of a minimum of 6 races competed in over the course of the season to be eligible if you are outside of the top 13 point cutoff for the playoffs. So Davison going to have to race and race hard, but everybody else there in good shape. It's Stallnecht, Alfredo, Caps, Ford Martin, Gary Sexton, DJ Cummings, Seth Eggert, and Steve Affonts, the drivers who came into this evening set up and locked into the playoffs. It also means that the man that you see here, Will Power, will not be part of the playoffs. His one car in trouble looks like Ford Martin actually ends up sideways. I believe that would be Quebec Corner, but trouble for Ford Martin in the 07 machine, which is notable when we look at the playoff cutoff, since he's a little bit further back, sitting on 238 points to Steve Affonts 199. So there is some breathing room for Ford to work with, but that certainly will put a little bit more pressure on him when we go to Homestead in the Cup cars next week.
It certainly will be. He's going to have to probably win next week at Homestead in order to have a shot at the playoffs. So it's going to be a tall order for him, but he could possibly do it. Homestead Miami Speedway will provide a lot of action, a lot of different groups, but right now he's trying to try to bring the car home.
At least bring it to the competition caution that we'll see in the not too distant future, as the 07 machine got sideways, tried to reconnect with the racetrack, and that same sort of issue. I think so many people don't realize the amount of power that these 911 RSRs have in the rear of these tires. You have to be mindful of the torque curve to make sure that you don't get on the gas too quickly and give these cars too much power to get them back on the racetrack. It's a common mistake that I think we see with these cars at pretty much anywhere you see them in iRacing. You try and get back to the gas because you made a mistake, and then you get back into the gas too hard, and you end up doing even more damage than you initially did when you got off track.
It certainly is the case right now, as we saw Ford Martin has a severe amount of damage right now to his Porsche as he continues on his way here. But we'll see what happens as he comes down pit road. He might still have a fast repair, but I do not know for sure.
We will see how it pans out. As it stands, it's still Gabe Wood ahead of Will Rogers by 3.4 seconds is the margin between the 50 and the 65. Then Cummings, then Alfredo, who has managed to clear Nick DeGroot. So Anthony Alfredo continuing to charge through the field, and it makes me wonder, once this field gets bunched back up, I don't know if he's quite had the pace as a Davison or a Power, somebody with the raw speed, but the consistency. He's found that bubble where you pull back your lap times a little bit, you maybe take away 7 or 8 tenths of a second, but you make very, very consistent runs around this course. And every time I look at the board, it's a 113.0, 113.1, 113.2, 113.0. It's been right in that range for Alfredo every single lap. That's part of the reason why he's climbed from 16th on the grid to 4th as they run. One of the hardest chargers in the field as it stands.
He certainly is, and doing a great job. It's only going to be interesting to see what he can accomplish when we get done with this competition caution, once he gets some fresh tires and fuel to continue on his way. So that's going to be an exciting battle to see him work his way up, possibly into another podium finish, or maybe sneak a win away from the IndyCar aces.
Potentially, because they'll have the track position on them. And even though we know Will Power and James Davison have pace for sure, they still are going to have to poke their way through this group. And I guess to that end, it's a good thing that they have their mistakes befall them before they get to the competition caution, because once you get past that, it's going to be very, very tough if you make a mistake in the second half of this race to make it back up, because we are going to see primarily local yellows, if anything. Not really too many full course yellows to bunch the field back up.
Yeah, that's going to be the case, because like here, that competition caution is the only one. Local yellows are just a recommendation for drivers to slow down, wait till they make a pass before they get past the incident that has happened on track. So they'll have to wait. But right now, as we're still waiting to see when that competition caution comes out, Will Rogers has actually caught Gabriel Wood to pass him for the race lead.
Gabe Wood racing Will Rogers, and all of a sudden that lead is gone away. And maybe not a shocker that we've got the resident road course ace here in iRacing, and especially on Podium broadcast as of late, finding his way through the field and ticking it off and running along and making things happen, as Wood's going to come down pit road in response to that. So Will Rogers, your new race leader, as Wood comes down for his pit stop of the night.
That's going to be interesting to see what he's going to do as the rest of the field. Will anybody else respond before the competition caution comes out as they come around? So far, the top 8 has yet to pit, with the inclusion of Brett Baldeck and Drew Welker, who are outside the top 15 or sitting in 15th. Ryan Vargas, another car to come down pit road, along with Nick DeGroot, Anthony Alfredo. Will Rogers now is able to try to make up some ground with these drivers coming down pit road.
So it's Rogers, Cummings, Slate, and Covey Moore, who have all come out and run past the pit road entrance for another lap or so. Everybody else has come down at some point. It's Power, DeGroot, Alfredo, Wood, Vargas that have come in this time by. So you'll have that quintet up against the quartet that we have that have stayed out on track, and the lead should, in theory, cycle back to Will Power once everybody comes down pit road. The question is, how much of a gap will he have on a Will Rogers, on a DJ Cummings, on a Gabe Wood, on some of these other drivers who have had some success in the first half of this race?
Well, so far right now, we're going to have to see what happens, but Will Power has now broken inside the top 5. He has a 13-second advantage over the first car who has come out of pit road, out of that recent group, Nick DeGroot, and he's working his way through some lap traffic. He's about 3.6 seconds back from Covey Moore, as the top 4 has yet to pit, as Will Rogers, DJ Cummings, Joshua Slate now entering pit road along with Covey Moore. So that will allow Will Rogers to get back, or Will Power to get back up into the race lead.
Should indeed, as Power is going to run past the front straightaway, and Will Rogers is going to fall back to 3rd, potentially 4th, depending on how much fuel he does or doesn't take. We'll wait and see where that 65 pops out. That's going to be the big question. Same for DJ Cummings, but Cummings just took a splash of fuel. No tires on the number 10 machine. So Cummings going to try and double stint on these Michelins to make it to the end, while DeGroot and company slide in behind him.
Looking through the field right now to see if there are any more interesting battles on the track right now, with the green flag pit stops going underway. How about a great run right now for Ron Capps? He has broken inside the top 10 after his pit stop. He is about 4/10 seconds behind Gary Sexton, who's also made his way into the top 7, as he is trying to see if he can run down James Davison, last week's winner at Auto Club, who moved up into the 6th position.
Riding on board with Gary Sexton, just ahead of former NHRA Funny Car champion Ron Capps, who you see on your screen. Sexton running the Podium eSports colors, graphic designer here at Podium. So the logo and a lot of the artwork that you see on a broadcast largely attributed to this man out of Hanover, Pennsylvania, as he continues to put in another solid run. He too inside that playoff cutoff, 10th in points coming into this evening as the competition caution does finally arrive and gives everyone the chance to reset. So what did we learn in the first 30 minutes of this race, Taylor Burris, throughout the field that we can apply to the final 20?
Well, one thing that we learned, of course, is going to be make sure you avoid the curves and avoid the grass. We saw a lot of drivers, if they even clip any one of those, they're going to go right around and into the tire barriers or into the outside wall barriers, especially if they're coming off of White's corner. Another thing, too, as well, is utilizing the opportunity to pick off drivers by using lap traffic to help them get around their competition. We saw that several times for some of our drivers out throughout the field to make up ground and positions. And of course, watching your positioning on the track and taking care of your tires. We saw some drivers who used the tires up a little bit too much and ended themselves losing control of their race cars. So we'll have to keep track and see who's going to be able to take care of their tires, manage lap traffic, and avoid the curbs.
And is this a case where maybe a Will Rogers or a James Davison ends up benefiting from all this? Because I look at the drivers in the top 10. I can tell you now that Will Power, DJ Cummings, Nick DeGroot, and Anthony Alfredo all appeared to just take fuel. Short pit stops for all of them. Rogers and Davison, on the other hand, along with Gabe Wood, took tires. Slower pit stops, but they'll have the fresh rubber for the second half of this race.
But also the question you got to throw in as well, will the top 5 also decide to come down pit road to get tires now, since they won't lose as much time? They might lose positions, but they won't lose as much time. They'll actually catch back up to the field when they get ready to go. So that's also going to be something to consider as they do catch up to the pace car right now. But most likely for drivers such as Will Power, it's going to be track position will be king for them. They'll probably stay out. But for someone like DJ Cummings, Nick DeGroot, they want to try to see if, especially Anthony Alfredo even, if they want to try to get a win in order to guarantee them a spot in the championship, they might go ahead and take those tires to see if they can maybe squeeze out a podium or possibly steal a win away.
We will find out how the strategy plays out on the other side of the break that we are about to take from Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. You're watching coverage of the CooksandCars Porsche Challenge presented by Big Green Egg on Podium eSports.
There's a place where fire and flavor are celebrated, where grilling traditions and new techniques are perfected. Here in Big Green Egg Country, you can grill it, roast it, smoke it, or bake it. It's the most versatile grill you'll ever own. Simple delight, easy to use, comes with a free lifetime warranty. Have it delivered to your door by a certified dealer in your community and start enjoying the ultimate cooking experience. Shop online for home delivery at biggreenegg.com. That's biggreenegg.com.
Welcome back to Podium eSports coverage of the CooksandCars Porsche Challenge presented by Big Green Egg, live tonight from iRacing's virtual Canadian Tire Motorsport Park in Bowmanville, Ontario. At this point, it's time to step back and bring you our iRacing Midway Race Break, which as always is brought to you by iRacing, the world's premier online racing game. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat to experience today's newest form of competitive motorsport. Virtual racing, all from your home PC. Race virtually in Australian supercars, IndyCar, IMSA, NASCAR, the world of outlaws, and more. It's Will Power who leads this field as we cross the halfway point of the CooksandCars Porsche Challenge. DJ Cummings in the second spot. Nick DeGroot holds third. Fourth belongs to Anthony Alfredo, and fifth on the board is Will Rogers. James Davison holds the sixth position. Seventh belongs to Gary Sexton. It's Ron Capps in eighth. Ninth to the 50 of Gabe Wood and Josh Slate rounding out the top 10.
Nick Sanchez will be sitting in the 11th position, followed by NASCAR Xfinity Series driver Ryan Vargas. Cody Moore is actually on pit road right now, sitting in 13th, followed by Connor Daly in the 14th position. Max Kennan currently sits in 15th right now, as Matt Stallknecht sits in the 16th position. 17th goes to Ford Martin with Drew Welker. 18th, Brett Baldeck sits 19th on pit road. Rounding out your top 20, Stephen Ellis.
Zach Eggert is 21st on the board as it stands. 22nd belongs to Robbie Lyons. He's the last car in the lead lap. Mark Rubilis is the first car, one lap down in 23rd. 24th is Kyle Busch. Garrett Smithley rides in 25th. 26th belongs to Garrett Miller. Michael Massey holds 27th. 28th belongs to Greg Stump. And Steve Affont holds the 29th position.
30th goes to Preston Pardis, as followed in 31st, Stephen Wilson, TJ Majors 32nd, Paul Sutton 33rd, Brandon Brown sits 34th, Roger Diebold did not start, he will come home in 35th.
And that concludes tonight's iRacing Midway Race Break. With over 170,000 drivers on the service and over 90 laser scan tracks and cars to choose from, iRacing is your portal to the racing world. Get on track today at iRacing.com. Will Power, your leader. DJ Cummings in second. Nick DeGroot in third. Will Rogers sitting right behind Anthony Alfredo. And James Davison, too, on the fresh tires. And to me, that's the story to watch coming into this final green flag run. Do the fresh tires make a difference? And can Rogers and Davison climb through the running order to get back to Will Power and make it a potentially 2, 3, 4 car fight for the lead?
Well, that's going to be interesting to see if DJ Cummings or DeGroot can have anything for Will Power as they work their way through the field. Of course, not much time is left on the clock, about 13 and a half minutes to go. So it's going to be interesting to see, will they have something? Anthony Alfredo, Will Rogers, they may have something for him. It's going to be interesting to see because they've both been very consistent. I think if they just get a little bit closer, and of course we now have bunched the field up, that will be something we can possibly see.
We'll take a moment as the cars bunch their way and bunch back up to get ready for the restart when we come back to the start-finish line next time by going to have somewhere in the ballpark of about 12 minutes left in tonight's race. That is brought to you by Tufco Flooring, an industrial flooring company specializing in custom floors and drains. Tufco doesn't believe in a one-size-fits-all approach, and neither should you. Tufco listens to your needs and requirements and develops custom solutions for every client. And for more information, you can visit their website at tufcoflooring.com. We'll also remind you of some of the events coming up in the world of Podium eSports over the next week. Two that we can mention within the next 7 days. The MPI Cup Series heads to the World Center of Racing, Daytona International Speedway, next Sunday night, January 24th at 9:15 p.m. Eastern on the main Podium eSports Twitch channel at twitch.tv/Podium eSports. We're back with Monday Night Racing presented by Tufco Flooring from Homestead Miami Speedway, the regular season finale with Fox's Adam Alexander, Larry McReynolds, and NASCAR Hall of Famer Darrell Waltrip on the call. 9 p.m. Eastern time start on Podium 2 on Twitch or Podium Esports Facebook or YouTube. Also Twitter going to have the broadcast of that race as well. And then we can't forget about the third annual Podium 500. Over 250 drivers registered to compete in the largest super speedway special event on iRacing. We will whittle it down over the weekend to 43 that will start Sunday's 500-mile, 200-lap, $1,000 to win feature event. All Podium 500 events you can find live on twitch.tv/Podium Esports, and you can register now on podiumesports.com/Podium-500 to get yourself in on the fun. Prelim race Thursday at 9, qualifying day Saturday at noon, and the 500 Sunday afternoon, February 7th, 12:30 p.m. Eastern on twitch.tv/Podium Esports. One of the best weekends of the year in sim racing so far as we're concerned, as we go back to green flag racing in this CooksandCars Porsche Challenge at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. Will Power got a great restart. He's clear of DJ Cummings by about 3 or 4 car lengths. The same for Cummings, back to DeGroot and Alfredo, and now Rogers and Davison on the French tires battling each other through Clayton Corner.
Ooh, slight bit of contact between Davison and Rogers as they come out of Clayton heading up to Quebec, but Davison will back off, try to see if he can make another pass as they come out of Quebec corner and see if he can make up some ground before they get to Moss. He gets a good run out of Quebec. He's going to look to the inside now as they go through turn number 4, almost touching doors. More contact there as they come up to Moss.
There is this battle for the lead that they are trying to get back to with Will Power back in clean air, but this fight for fourth is almost more intense than the racing we're seeing at the very front of the field, because Davison and Rogers are all over each other trying to figure out who wants to go try and catch Anthony Alfredo and Nick DeGroot.
Well, we see Davison was able to pull away now from Will Rogers as they head up to the S's. This is a good opportunity for both of them to see who is going to be able to set the car better up as they head up to White. Rogers with a great exit out of the S's heading into White, but let's see who gets the power down quicker as they come out of the White's corner. Davison will have a car length advantage, almost losing control of the car, touching the grass.
Absolutely on edge, no question about it. James Davison pushing his 911 RSR to the absolute limit with Will Rogers in hot pursuit. One car a little bit further back off track. It's Gabe Wood in the 9, so he'll drop a spot or two. As we go on board with Davison, you can see just how bumpy this track can be when you are on your absolute limit.
It certainly is. This track can, even though it may seem simple in looking at a map, it is a very difficult course. Some of the biggest names have made mistakes to where it cost them a chance of victory. Here comes Davison now with a big inside move to Anthony Alfredo. He'll now slide up into fourth. Rogers tries to follow but couldn't make it work as Alfredo will shut the door on him.
Rogers just about made contact with Alfredo, but that was a beautiful move from Davison entering Moss corner. He made it so late that he didn't give Alfredo any opportunity to defend the inside, and Davison was already alongside the 38 before Alfredo even recognized that he was there. And that is the biggest thing for Davison, I think, is not only did he clear Alfredo, but Alfredo's managed to keep Will Rogers trapped behind him, and that's opening up the gap between the 33 and the 65.
It certainly is the case right now, as here he comes now up on Nick DeGroot. He'll look to the inside, heading into turn number 1. He'll now be in the podium spot as they come out of turn 1, heading up to Clayton Corner.
Davison now beginning to use that clean air and the space to his advantage. The problem is that Will Power, for as fast as Davison was, Power was 0.3 faster that last time by. It was a 1:12.1 to a 1:12.4. So Power really beginning to turn on the afterburners, and it was almost a full second faster than DJ Cummings, who gave up about half a second to the 33.
Here they come up into Moss corner. Davison with the big send up in there to try to make up some ground. He's now about 1.3, now 1 second back from DJ Cummings as they go down the Mario Andretti straight now, trying to see if he can sniff out the draft to see if he can get a little bit closer to DJ Cummings, but right now he's going to have a little bit of work to do as they approach the S's.
Work indeed. Also, last time by for Will Power, that 1:12.1. Fastest lap of the race for the leader, even with the sun out on the racetrack a little bit. First time we've seen that tonight. It's been largely cloudy in this Cooks&Cars Porsche Challenge up to this point. And as they come across the line, Power was a little bit slower that last time at a 1:12.2. Cummings even slower at a 1:12.8. Davison at a 1:12.6. So Davison is continuing to gain on the 10, but the 1 is continuing to scoot away even further and further and further.
Yeah, last time by Power ran at 1:12.2, and of course Davison actually a lot slower than his last lap with a 1:12.6, so he is losing some time right now. He's got to find that extra tenth, and in fact actually 3/10 maybe, to have a shot of trying to see if he can catch up to Will Powers as they now go through the Moss corner. Actually, Will Power is off course. He is actually off course of Moss corner, losing a ton of time, dropping down to 5th position, 6th position now as DJ Cummings now your new race leader.
A tremendous mental mistake from Will Power, which drops the race leader from P1 all the way back to P6 and hands the lead to DJ Cummings for a moment. As you see the replay on your screens, James Davison is alongside the 10 and has completed the pass for the race lead. And Davison, who was trying to chase down Will Power, all of a sudden has the race in his hands, and it's Power who's going to have to make the charge in the final few minutes to get back to the 33 with 6 minutes and 20 seconds left to go on the clock.
Well, if you're talking about someone who will be definitely a hard charger and not take any prisoners, Will Power will be that driver now. He's going to have to make up tracks as he comes through Clayton Corner to catch up to Anthony Alfredo to break into the top 5, but he is definitely on a tear as they come up to Quebec Corner.
Big work now for Will Power and all this traffic too. It's not like he's got clean racetrack to make all this gap up. It's DeGroot and Rogers and Alfredo that are all within about maybe a second of one another, and Power's going to have to get past all three of them to have a shot to get back to James Davison, who is looking to go back-to-back in these last two races.
Here they go down the Andretti straightaway right now. Davison has a 7/10 advantage over DJ Cummings, and Will Power has about a 3/10 back from Anthony Alfredo as they continue to go to the end of the Andretti straight into the S's. We also got a good battle for third position between Nick DeGroot and Will Rogers as well as they come through the end of the S's up into white. Power giving the bumper to Anthony Alfredo. He'll duck to the inside. Fifth position is his.
So fifth to Will Power. He's gained one spot. It's now about Will Rogers. As we'll see the 65 try and charge past Nick DeGroot, but they've been pretty dead even on lap times too. It was a 1:13 to a 1:13, and Davison was a tenth slower than Will Power, who was the fastest car on the racetrack. Gabe Wood, incidentally, was second fastest, and Nick Sanchez in there too with a 1:12.7 that last time by. Sanchez running an 8, so we're seeing some speed, especially for drivers with fresh tires. It's just a matter of time. That's the question.
And not a lot of time, under 5 minutes left to go. In fact, 4.5 minutes right now as Nick DeGroot goes off course through Moss. So there's one less position for Will Power to get by. He now sits in fourth. So now it's the battle of the wills as they come down the Andretti straight now to see who has the most willpower in order to see if they can get into the top three.
There are about a million different will loops that we can throw ourselves into that would make my brain hurt, so I'll avoid them. But Power now with the opportunity to charge on Rogers, who was not that far off. It was only 2/10 on the lap times last time by, but look at that move in the S's without any fear. There goes Will Power with the aggressive move to clear Will Rogers and get back to third. He knows he's got to make up for that mistake now. DJ Cummings, the next man up the road. He's got about 2 seconds to go get back to DJ Cummings, and if he can get to the 10 car and get around him, it's another second to James Davison.
Probably mean the next victim, because Will Power has just absolutely been demolishing the competition to get back up through the field to catch up to James Davison as they come out of Quebec corner, heading up underneath the Continental Bridge up to Moss corner. DJ Cummings actually a little bit faster than James Davison that last time around, a 12:70 to compare to James Davison 12:78. So DJ Cummings trying to reel back in the race leader.
Cummings beginning to figure it out here. The question is, has he waited too late to try and claw some of that time back? I think that's the issue here. It's going to take blistering laps to go get Davison. It can't just be 1/10. It's got to be 3, 4, 5, over half a second, I think, per lap, if the 10 wants to have any shot at keeping James Davison from going to victory lane for the second week in a row.
That's going to be critical. And, of course, for DJ Cummings, with that win, that will guarantee him a spot in the playoffs to have a shot of trying to redeem himself from last season where he made the Final Four in the championship. So we'll have to see what he can do. But right now, he's falling off the pace. And James Davison finally has kicked in the afterburners a little bit, ran a 12:54, but still not good enough as Will Powers ran a 12:36.
It was a 12:54 to a 12:36 for Power and a 12:82 for DJ Cummings. So Cummings continuing to lose touch with the 33 and fall back into the clutches of the one as Will Power tries to lock down a podium spot in his Monday Night Racing debut. But as it stands, it is Davison's race to lose.
Out of Moss corner once again, a big gain of time right now for Will Power. He's now just shy of a second behind DJ Cummings as they go down the Andretti straight. We're going to see him gain a lot of time through the S's. That's where he's made the most gain of ground. Will Power has up through the S's into whites. That's where he's made actually a lot of the passes he has completed here as they now approach the S's. Here they go down through the S's, now hitting the curbs just right enough to where they don't go around, and he gets a bunch of time gained on DJ Cummings as they come out of White's corner. About a minute and a half left to go.
Not too much longer now, probably 2 laps left for James Davis, and he should come across the line next time by with about 15 seconds left, so 2 to go. Follow that time counter on the bottom, and that will be your guide to the end of this race, as Davison was actually slower than DJ Cummings. Cummings finally beating him by about 0.4 of a second, but I don't know if there's enough time. With maybe a lap and a half left, it will be tough. I think it's going to require a mistake on Davison's part somewhere, some way, for Cummings to have a shot at this.
It's going to be a big mistake, as we see, as here comes Will Power, taking a peek to the inside out of Moss, but he's got the run he needs. Will he get to second place at least as they go down the Andretti straightaway? He has a little bit of the draft to help pull him a little closer to DJ Cummings, where he can set it up for the S's.
Big move here for Cummings if he can make it happen. Big move for Power if he can set it up. We saw what he did. It's the same strategy that he's going to try and use here that he used to get around Will Rogers. And it's a big move on the outside that Power uses to get second away from DJ Cummings. Beautiful work for Will Power to make that pass happen, to go back to P2. And it is the Australians who have the shot at one another as the white flag is out for James Davison.
Here they go one more time. 2.9 seconds separates James Davison from Will Power as they now come out of Clayton, heading up to Quebec for the final time. He just has to hit his mark and make no mistake.
What does he do in turn 5 on this last lap? It is the one corner that has consistently caught out so many drivers in this Cooks and Cars challenge. And it is a clean run through Moss Corner for James Davison. And even if Power gets an incredible run through the S's like he has, clean run for Davison should do it.
Comes a little bit of lap traffic, though, but of course they're giving way right now, not wanting to get involved in the incident as Will Power gets around some of the lap traffic, heading down the Andretti straight for the final time.
One more run through the S's for James Davison, who came into Monday Night Racing, presented by Tufco Flooring midway through the season. Got the victory in the Stand Up to Cancer 160 at Auto Club last Monday night, and this Monday night will go 2 for 2 in back-to-back. James Davison wins the Cooks and Cars Porsche Challenge, presented by Big Green Egg at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. Victory number 2 on the season for James Davison, who has been the story of this league in 2021 so far.
A great run, and of course, what about a great stellar performance by Will Power after that mistake from leading the lap to coming back in second? A great performance, and of course, DJ Cummings, a good points night, rounding out your podium finish.
A really good night for Cummings, who had his best finish of the year and asserts himself into the conversation. It might not necessarily be the strong run he had of the regular season in Season 1, but it's good enough to vault him clear of Seth Eggert a little bit more. He'll be close to Gary Sexton at the end of this, but still a good run for DJ Cummings to come home P3. We'll try and get our top 3 drivers into the booth momentarily so you can hear from all of them, but for now, as these drivers continue their final laps in this race, it's time for us to turn to the full field rundown and tell you where your favorite driver finished. A big victory for James Davison, who goes 2 for 2 in as many weeks, beats out Will Power, his countryman, who finished second. DJ Cummings finishes P3 this evening. Will Rogers with another strong run on the road course. He was 4th. Anthony Alfredo completed the top 5. 6 went to the defending champion of Monday Night Racing, Nick DeGroot. Gary Sexton comes home in the 7th spot. 8th went to Nick Sanchez. Kobe Moore for factory back finish in the 9th spot. And 10th went to the 6th car, the TikTok machine of Ryan Vargas.
Garrett Smithley will come home in the 11th position, followed by Ford Martin with a strong run, 10 positions gained. He'll finish in 12th. Gabriel Wood will lose 10 positions, finishing in 13th, followed by Stephen Ellis in 14th. Matthew Stallneck will come home in the 15th position, followed by Garrett Miller in 16th. Max Kennan will come home in 17th, followed by Britt Baldeck in 18th. Robbie Lyons comes home in 19th, and another strong run for Drew Welker started 30th, will finish 20th here tonight.
21st was Josh Slate. Seth Eggert was the last car in the lead lap in 22nd. 23rd went to the number 28 of Ron Capson. Mark Rubelas finished in 24th. In 25th this evening, it was Greg Stump from Off Axis Paint. Michael Massey finished in the 26th position. 27th went to Connor Daly. Kyle Busch finished 28th this evening. 29th was Steve Font. 30th was Preston Pardis, Stephen Wilson, TJ Majors, and Paul Sutton completed the 33-car field at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park this evening. We are now joined in the booth by our race winner for the second week in a row, James Davison. And that last run, there are so many different places we could jump into this race for you and talk about it. But we'll start with that last run and just where your mindset was, knowing that you had to jump up about 6 positions to try and go get Will. Was there any strategy besides just trying to go as wide open as you could in that instance?
No, yeah, I just had to get through those guys, and yeah, it was unfortunate what happened with Will and I. It was just a racing incident, really. We had a little bit of contact, and then I was a bit out of control as a result, going into the next left-hander, and I think in real life he wouldn't have spun the way that we made contact, so that was a bit unfortunate. But in the end, you know, he was leading. Where I lost all the track position as I sped in the pits, I pushed the pit lane speed button and it wasn't on. I think I must have double clicked it, so I had to hold in the pits for 40 seconds. So that's essentially how I lost the lead. But yeah, you know, never give up, and that was a fantastic race with Will to just be pumping out those qualifying laps against a champion like him. It was a real privilege to do that. I really enjoyed it, and the mental discipline and the energy that you needed to put into those laps was a lot. You know, obviously he's a top guy. So yeah, I'm pleased with that. I wish we hadn't made contact, but that's racing. You know, there was no bad intent.
I want to touch on that mental energy just a little bit more, because I think this race made it very clear, especially as we were watching the final few laps, that you, Will Rogers, Cummings, everybody in that top 5, you're all right on the edge. And this car in particular, I think, compared to other ones in the sim, is one where you really have to ride the line and find the right power bands, the right torque curves, the right patterns getting back on the throttle in order to optimize your lap time. So how tricky is that line to find in this car compared to some of the others in the sim, and how did you manage to find it tonight?
I'd raced here at Motorsport in IMSA a number of years ago, and I think I won in Star Mazda, which is the Indy Pro 2000 series now, back in the day when I was in the Road to Indy. So I knew the track, and then the car was really a combination of a GT car and an open wheeler. It has a lot of downforce with the big diffuser and front splitter and rear wing, so there's an element of pushing it like an open wheeler, but they're not overdriving the front tire. And yeah, just getting the entries and exits just right. And many blind corners at Motorsport. It was easy to lock up there at 5A and B, I think, as Will did. And yeah, you know, it's you got to be quick in and out of that corner. And if you go slightly too quick, you either go off or mess the exit up down the Mario Andretti straightaway, I think it's called. Or if you're just too conservative, you lose time that way. So yeah, it's a big balance. So I really enjoyed it.
Entertaining to watch. And now we move maybe a little bit out of your wheelhouse. We know you know IndyCar as well. We know you know road courses well, but it's Cup Cars in an oval down in Miami next week. We haven't had someone go win 3 in a row in Monday Night Racing since Parker Kligerman did it in the summer last year. So any added pressure going into that race to try and become the second man to go 3 in a row in series history?
Look, I'm not focusing on those things. I'm just focusing on each corner at a time, and I, you know, in a way have surprised myself, you know, to get two in a row, and I haven't, you know, done a whole lot of iRacing in the last 6 months since the lockdown, and I'm just getting into it now. I've got a nice new sim setup, and it's going to be exciting to try those stock cars at Homestead, and I expect it won't be as much of a breeze. I'm not going to say a breeze, but I don't expect it to be a breeze in any way, sorry. You know, I'm going to be up against a lot of talent, a lot of those young guys, Kyle Busch, that know the stock cars very well, and that pattern of driving the cars is embedded in them from a very young age. So as much as I feel like I can be competitive, I'm going to have to work to adapt as quick as I can.
Well, James, congratulations on your victory tonight. 2 in a row for you, and you are the winner of the CooksandCars Porsche Challenge presented by Big Green Egg. Thanks for the time. We'll see you down in South Florida next Monday night.
Thank you. I'm here already. I'm sitting in my apartment in Miami, so I'm good to go.
Literally from South Florida will be James Davison. We turn from James Davison to tonight's debutant, one of the bigger debutants we've seen in Monday Night Racing, presented by Tufco Flooring in a while. Will Power starts off his M&R campaign with a P2 finish, and he is with Taylor Burris.
Here with Will Powers right now, and Will, a great performance. Couldn't get the win, but finishing those final minutes, just dicing through the field to come home second. Tell us your thought process of what going through your mind with that situation to be able to snap back in and at least try to finish second place tonight.
Yeah, I was actually probably that was the most fun I had all race. I was out front leading, and I was talking on the radio to my spotter, and then made a mistake. When you're not being pressured, you're not focusing very well. But at the same time, I was doing some of the quickest laps out front that I'd done all race. I got down to a 12-1. But yeah, I had so much fun getting back through the field a second. Would have loved to win, of course, but it was good race.
Now, in the beginning of the race, how were the conditions throughout the race? Of course, having to negotiate lap traffic. Of course, you also did have that incident early on where you had to come down pit road with a penalty with a contact between you and James. What was your thought process of just trying to get back before we had that competition caution?
Yeah, well, I had some lap traffic, and James was pretty quick, and he got a good draft on me because we were held up at the previous corner, and then we were racing, and I guess he had a moment, tapped me and turned me around, so we decided to pit right there and then. And I don't know what happened to James at that point, like why he was so far back, because I had spun and hit the wall and tried to get going and lost a lot of time. But yeah, it was, as it always is, tough kind of trying to understand where a lap car may go or where he may hold you up. But it makes the racing exciting, and man, these cars are really easy and fun to drive. They really are a nice car.
Makes you want to consider maybe doing some actual sports car racing in the future?
Yeah, I could. I should have gone for a GT ride at the Daytona 24. I just too focused on the IndyCar Championship for this year. I enjoy it, and I know you got to put 100% effort in to win races in that series. So I don't really focus on anything else. So yeah, but I tell you, in the next few years, I'm going to start doing some sports car stuff.
Well, before we let you go, next week we are running at Homestead, Miami with the Cup cars. How much are you looking forward to coming back next Monday night to race in that?
Yeah, I look forward to running there. It's something I've never done and haven't raced on iRacing in a Cup car, so that's going to be awesome. Really going to enjoy that, yeah, have some fun.
Well, of course, Will, thank you for coming out. Of course, congratulations on finishing second. I know you would have probably liked to take home that victory, but still a great performance and very entertaining from start to finish.
Thank you. Yeah, really had a lot of fun. It was great.
That is Will Power coming home in second place here tonight. And James has caught up with our final podium member, DJ Cummings.
DJ Cummings comes away with the season's best P3, and I feel like for as much as you run in this league and as many races as you have in this, just how wild was it to look up and see James Davison, Will Power, Will Rogers, Anthony Alfredo all around you at the front of the field, and you, especially towards the end of that race, I feel like you really did pick up this racetrack. The speed wasn't necessarily there in the beginning, but you were down right there with them on lap times by the time the checkered flag fell.
I mean, you said it right there. If you were going to tell me at the beginning of the race that I was going to finish third to James Davison and Will Power, I would have taken the briefcase and ran with it. It was solid effort. I knew that this was going to be a weakness because I'm no road racer. I spent most of my time on iRacing doing mainly oval stuff, so I put a lot of time in getting used to the track. And once we started doing practice races and I could see how my times were comparing to some of these guys, I was like, oh, maybe I actually have a shot at this. And then at that point, during the race, it was mainly just keep it on the racing surface, because you saw throughout the whole event, everybody might have been pushing the envelope a little too much. The wheels locking up, they get off the asphalt, and it totally ruins their day. So that was my main focus going in, is just keep it on the asphalt, let everybody else make the mistakes, and just capitalize when you can.
How much did you learn in that first portion of the race? It wasn't necessarily easy. You got turned on the Andretti straightaway. We just saw the replay a few moments ago, and it was rough, to say the least. So how were you able to turn it around in the second half of this?
Well, actually, I don't think I got turned. I did have a few butt-clinching moments where I had a couple of guys wreck right in front of me, and I had just enough distance where I could put the brakes on and keep it on the racetrack, because I'm pretty sure we had our lead commissioner Ford wipe out in front of me one time, and then I had, I think, the two Garretts, Miller and Smithley, wiped out coming out of the Moss corner there. So I was trying to try and sneak by them without them running into me. So that first part of the run was really just getting the heat in the tires, getting your rhythm once the field spread out, because that first probably about 5 laps or so, everybody was all bunched together, and I was looking more out the rear view mirror than I was out the front windshield, because I was half expecting someone to just blow through a corner and take me out in the process. So I was kind of being a little conservative. And then once we got spread out, I believe Will Rogers was ahead of me through that first time for that first break. So I was really just trying to match him, and it seemed like we were really running identical lap times. And then when it came time to pit, I followed him in, and it seemed like the tire wear wasn't as much as you would think. So I decided to just go fuel only, and paid out really nicely. So fuel strategy during a road race, who would have thought?
As we step away from this race in particular, I think with regards to your season, this is a huge race to bank points in, especially since it hasn't necessarily been this way every week for you, and yet this is the race that really does solidify your shot at the playoffs. That gets you pretty well clear of the bubble, and I think removes a lot of the pressure going into next week, where if it might not necessarily be so obvious with that beautiful Harris Lou painted NASCAR Porsche, we're heading into a little bit more of your wheelhouse next week with the Cup Cars at Homestead Miami. So in that sense, how big was tonight's run?
Huge, absolutely huge, especially how I finished compared to some of the other guys around that playoff cutoff line. I have a P3, but you got guys like Seth Eggert coming away 22nd, or Steve off on 29th. Those guys that I was just above on the playoff cutoff line, I finished a lot higher, which definitely huge points day. So, and I know it's going to be the regular season finale, obviously, with all the major hype that we're going to have with it, with obviously AA, Larry Mack, DW calling the event, how much excitement built up already for it. If having a good race today was definitely going to get rid of that extra quote-unquote pressure, so to speak, to really put on a good show for the fans next week. And now I can let's sit back a little bit, but at the same time, obviously want to do as best I can as we hit the high banks of Homestead next week.
A big week next week indeed. DJ, congratulations on your podium finish. Thanks for the time, and we'll see you at Homestead Miami next Monday night.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you.
A reminder that tonight's broadcast was brought to you by Cooks and Cars, the podcast that talks about all things cooking and racing. You can find more information about them at cooksandcars.com and tune in to their live show 10 a.m. Eastern every Saturday morning. Lots of association with Big Green Egg, presenting partner of tonight's race as well, and a lot of fun. Big thanks to them for their support of Monday Night Racing in tonight's Cooks and Cars Porsche Challenge. So Tonight's race is, I guess, officially about the all-season, and maybe fitting when we consider that next Tuesday happens to be Australia Day, that big national holiday for all the folks down in Oz. But it's a 1-2 for them. First time I think we've had two Australians go in the top two spots at a Monday night racing event, as this series continues to grow and expand, and it will only get bigger next Monday night because we have a very special trio coming to the booth. How about Adam Alexander, Larry McReynolds, and Daryl Waltrip to call the finale of the regular season for season 2 of Monday Night Racing? Taylor.
When I heard the announcement of this, I pretty much just froze, because this is something that probably any young broadcaster starting out has ever dreamed of, calling a race with 3 legendary broadcasters and people in the world of NASCAR. And of course, taking it to Homestead Miami Speedway, another home track of mine. I mean, it's going to be a great opportunity to call that race with these 3 legendary announcers.
We are going on air early, by the way, to make sure that you get all of the information, you're caught up on all the storylines, and you know everything that you need to in advance of the regular season finale. 8:45 p.m. Eastern Time next Monday night. Coming your way will be Monday Night Racing here on twitch.tv/Podium2 or the Podium eSports YouTube page, Facebook page, or the Monday Night Racing Twitter. All the places that you can tune in to the action from Homestead in the Cup car with 3 very special gentlemen on the call. We'll be watching that one very closely, very intently, as we find out which 13 drivers make the playoffs for Season 2 of Monday Night Racing. Before we get to that, though, we'll take a look at the point standings and show you how things will shape up. And this is with the drop coming in. It is DeGroot, Busch, Rogers, Pardis, Sanchez. They know they are good to go. Based off of the points, we can say definitively that Anthony Alfredo, Matt Stolnick, Ford Martin, and Gary Sexton are also officially locked in. So the battle is between Ron Capps, DJ Cummings, Seth Eggert, Steve Affont, Max Kinnon, Steven Ellis, Gabe Wood, Kobe Moore, Garrett Smithley, Drew Welker, Ryan Vargas. It's about maybe 10-ish drivers, Taylor, fighting for 4 spots in the end.
It's going to be exciting battling it out over at Homestead Miami Speedway, of course, with also the recent updates to the iRacing service where the drivers can actually go up right against the wall and wall right around the top side of Homestead Miami Speedway. That is going to make it even more exciting to see who can guarantee their spot in the playoffs.
And we will bring all the action to you next Monday night. But before we get to the regular season finale, one event that we can tell you about before we go back here on Monday night, and that is round 4 of the MPI Cup Series on Sunday night, January 24th, 9:15 p.m. Eastern Time, for the high banks of the World Center of Racing. They go plate racing for the first time in Season 3 for them. You can find that broadcast on twitch.tv/Podium eSports at 9:15 p.m. Eastern Time. We're back on air next Monday night. The main broadcast starts at 9, but we'll go on air 8:45 on twitch.tv/Podium2 or the Podium Facebook or the Podium YouTube or the Monday Night Racing Twitter. Multiple places you can catch the action for the regular season finale of Monday Night Racing, presented by Tufco Flooring in the Cup Cars at Homestead Miami Speedway. And then, of course, the 3rd annual Podium 500. If you took the Chili Bowl and took that same kind of qualifying format, applied it to the Great American Race, it's essentially what you get when you get the Podium 500. Over 250 drivers have registered to take part in the event, which will go down all weekend. Starts with the preliminary race on Thursday, February 4th at 9 p.m. Eastern, qualifying day, where we whittle down 300 projected entries plus to the 43 that will start on Sunday. You see that begins Saturday, February 6th at noon Eastern Time. And then the 500-mile, 200-lap, $1,000 to win feature event goes live Sunday, February 7th, 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time. All of those races you can find on twitch.tv/Podium eSports. it is time to round out our broadcast of this Cooks and Cars Porsche Challenge presented by Big Green Egg, the 9th round of Season 2 of Monday Night Racing from the virtual Canadian Tire Motorsport Park in Bowmanville, Ontario. So for everybody at Monday Night Racing, Ford Martin, Paul Sutton, Josh Mendoza, and the admin team, for our team at Podium eSports, Cisco Scaramuza, Gary Sexton, and John Theodore, tonight's producer Ryan Bauer, and my colleague in the booth, Taylor Burrish, I am James Punt, the voice of Podium eSports. Thank you so much for watching our broadcast of Monday Night Racing presented by Tufco Flooring. We will see you Monday night with Double A, Larry Mack, and DW. We're going to find out which 13 drivers advance to the Season 2 Monday Night Racing playoffs. Until then, good night.